Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn, the young prodigy CJ Vogel, and our coach, former high school football coach at Vernon, Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan, also played college football at Abilene Christian, coach there for multiple stints, but also was on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head coaches. You can catch his work these days at ShipleyRanches.com. It's our coach, Bob Shipley. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Hey, if I ever do anything significant in life, you could write my bio.
I would. I'm telling you, I'd add it on there. I still didn't do
find
justice,
something to do significant, though.
Oh yeah, you've done plenty of significant, Coach. I couldn't even list. I didn't even list half the stuff.
That's so much bull.
Summarize it. Throw it out.
That's probably the most negative comments you get is, why you got to sell that stuff about Shipley? We know who he is.
I know we know who he is, but I think Coach deserves an intro, so I give him an intro. I give CJ an intro, but just not the one I give Coach. That's all.
I haven't done as much as Coach. That's why.
There you go.
CJ is a prodigy. I ain't no legend.
Now that is true. That is true, and he is a prodigy. And Coach is a legend. Thank you, Ashley. We really appreciate that. It is also a pleasure to hang out with you guys. One of our favorite times of the week as well. Get a chance to hang out and kick it with you guys. And it's all about you guys. Hey, what's up, Brandon, from the Panhandle? So my man CB earlier, too, out there in the chat. Thank all you guys. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate your participation as well. So throw out your questions, comments. We'll answer as many of them as we can. We'll also address the Super Chats. You know how that works. Super Chats jump to the front of the line so you can interrupt the show at any time, talk about whatever you want to talk about. Just throw that out there. Of course, we'll address the Jontay Cook news that came out earlier today. We're talking Texas, Florida, of course. There was an injury report that came out yesterday. We'll talk about that a little bit. There will be another one coming out later today. We'll get into the one that came out, though, most recently. And, of course, we can talk all things Texas football. We'll dive into Florida's news on their side, not only injury-wise, but also Billy Napier. Good news for him. A lot of people thought Billy Napier would be on the hot seat. Apparently, Florida officials and the decision makers have seen enough that they are willing to support and keep Billy Napier around. We'll get to that story as well coming up a little bit later on in the show. But gentlemen, let's start with the big news on the 40 acres. Sark actually spoke to the media today, so we'll talk about some of his comments about other things related to Texas football and their upcoming opponent. But first and foremost, CJ, and you were one of the first ones I saw with the news that Jontay Cook and the Longhorns no longer a thing. They decided to part ways. Sark said it was a mutual parting of ways. I don't know if we have many details, but it was clear, and we even talked about it on Texas football several times. It seemed like he had drifted out of the circle of trust. We don't know the reasons why, but it seemed like he was outside of that circle in the last couple of weeks, and now this is, I think, more evidence that he truly was not in that circle of trust for whatever reason, and he and Texas deciding to part ways as a result.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate, right? Jontay, a very talented wide receiver, a guy that was, highly acclaimed coming out of high school, someone that was vocal in support of building the class around him for the 2023 cycle. You hate to see him go in this manner, right? And I don't like using the word dismiss because I do think it was a mutual parting of ways. That's how Steve Sarkisian used it or described it earlier today in his media availability. But he will no longer be a part of this Texas program. I think the writing was on the wall, as you mentioned, Rod. He was not used the way I think he was expecting to be used. And you could maybe kind of count that up to a few things, right? How do you separate yourself if you're Jontay Cook from the bunch? Well, when you're on the field, those reps, those snaps, you have to make the most of them. And we saw that incompletion, that drop against Mississippi State kind of put him behind the 8 ball with this wide receiving group. Because one, Jontay was never really asked in high school to be a lead blocker for anybody. And he never really had that true physicality or really the frame to go out there and be a lead blocker in the quick game. He was always the guy that was receiving it. Good reason, right? He was a good wide receiver. And when those balls start going to a guy that runs 4.33 like Isaiah Bond or a Silas Bolton who has 140 career receptions, how do you then find ways to be utilized on the field? And Jerry Hamilton and I spoke about it earlier today as well. What do you do to help the team if the passes aren't going your way, right? That same wide receiving class out of in 2023, look at the wide receivers that were taken in that group, right? It's DeAndre Moore, who's a big time specialist on special teams. He can also be your lead blocker and does all the dirty work at wide receiver. He was the tutelage of Jordan Whittington, basically lived in his shadows and found every little way that he could contribute without the ball in his hands. That's great. Also the first guy on the field for practices in spring ball and fall camp. Ryan Niblett, not a guy that we've seen a whole lot of this year, but the way that he's found snaps, the way that he's found carries in receptions is by moving around, finding ways to help the football team. I'm not saying Jontay Cook wasn't doing that. I'm just saying he was a bit limited, right? He didn't have a running background. He wasn't a guy that could easily add 20 or 30 pounds upon arriving to college and become a guy that could go crack a linebacker or safety. What's unfortunate, obviously, is this was a guy that was vocal for the university. He's a high profile, almost a celebrity in the DFW area. I don't think this will hurt Texas a whole lot, but he certainly was a guy who, had he been a successful piece of this offense moving forward, he would have helped the Longhorns a whole lot. So I was told this morning his locker was cleaned out. Obviously, the news broke when we were on Coffee and Football. So right now, again, the bright spot for Texas, if there is one, is that circle of trust had been pretty close to about 5 guys at the wide receiver spot for quite some time. Right now, Isaiah Bond is coming back. Jontay had only played 11 snaps in SEC play. He had 7 against Mississippi State. He had 4 against Oklahoma. He did not see the field against Georgia. He did not see the field against against Vanderbilt with Isaiah Bond sidelined, and that should have been the writing on the wall there. Unfortunately, he will not be a part of this program moving forward.
Coach, what are your thoughts? Jontay Cook and Texas deciding mutually to part ways. Very talented receiver, had a tremendous upside, but Texas is really just deep at wide receiver at this time. What are your thoughts about kind of the new era of college football with a guy like Jontay Cook deciding to move on?
Yeah, well, it's really tough when you are a star like he was at DeSoto and, just kind of the face of that program, I guess you might say. And he was expecting more, but, potential and athleticism is one thing, but doing everything you can when you have an opportunity, when you're on the field, is the proof that's in the pudding, as they say. I hate it, but I'm thankful that we have Chris Gilbert on staff because I don't think, because Chris is on staff, I don't think it will hurt our DFW recruiting because he is so well respected and liked among his fellow peers in the Dallas area. But I just think Jontay, it just probably came down to the fact that I don't know what happened. And I've never met Jontay. I don't know a whole lot about his personal life in terms of what he's like in the locker room, what he's like in that wide receiver room. But obviously things got to the point. I don't know. I wonder if Jontay didn't say, look, I either need to be on the field or I'm going to transfer. I don't know that. I just my 100% speculation on my part. But when you see something like this happens that could start dividing that receiver room and start dividing that locker room, then it's probably the best thing. And let me tell you, I'm all about second chances. I mean, I hope that Jontay will learn from his experiences at the university, learn about overcoming adversity. And I feel like he'll come back. And I could really see him going to a place like SMU and really shining. I think that'd be a great fit for him. I don't know if that's where he'll wind up, but I wish him nothing but the best. I wish things would have worked out. I'm like you, CJ. I heard all the stories of, the first one at the practice and, we had a great summer workout and all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, you have to overcome adversity. And when you drop a ball, you've got to own it, and you've got to come back and a great point, CJ. He was never asked to be a secondary player, a secondary role player in high school. He wasn't asked to go out and block for a guy like CJ Gold, whatever. It's just it's unfortunate, but I wish him the best of luck, and I hope he lands on his feet and just has a great career and goes on to the NFL and does well, because he's a talented young man, and I just wish him nothing but the best.
Yep.
And I think, ultimately, just from a player perspective, he got to the point where he didn't see a path to play. And for whatever reason, now that could be the vibe he's getting from the coaches. Could be that. Could be the literal snaps that CJ brought up. He's like, hey, man, why am I not being played? Why am I not playing here? And then this is what I think from a player's perspective is psychologically devastating, because I've talked to guys who've been in this position. Never happened to me, but I talked to guys who've been in that position. When a freshman surpasses you on the depth chart, freshman or walk-on. When a freshman or walk-on, and this is nothing against freshmen or walk-ons, but I always love the way Coach Akina set up his DB room, Coach, because he would set it up with the starters sit at the front, and then the backups, second string would sit behind them, and so on and so on. And every now and then he'd walk in there and have to adjust the seating. Like, oh, no. And so everybody would know who lost the job. And then you would see actually some guys go from the back of the class and make their way all the way to the front and end up being a guy that's a starter. And it's you get the actual visual in your head, like, oh man. And think of that happening basically to the wide receiver room when a young guy like Ryan Wingo starts to surpass you. Now, I know they don't do it that way, but that's the visual. Think about that. And guys, I think ultimately for him, that was probably one of the last straws. And then, of course, the playing time itself. And then he sees his path to play just become more and more narrow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was still motivated when they brought in 3 wide receivers via the transfer portal.
Well, that's spring rod it's spring practice. Jontay's running with the first group. He's the elder statesman in the room, right? It's his job to lose at that point. These guys don't know the playbook. He's the guy that has that rapport with Quinn Ewers. And then you go into fall camp, he's still running with the ones. And then you see the snaps go from 39 to 24 to 30 to 11 to 4 to none. What does that tell you? The opportunities were there. Did he make the most of them or did he not? Because if he did, I think he would still be in this lineup. That's where I sit at this kind of long term. And again, that goes back to what do you do that others in the room cannot? He doesn't have the 4.33 speed of Isaiah Bond. He doesn't have the frame of Ryan Wingo. He doesn't have the after the catch ability of a Silas Bolden.
Yeah,
right now,
that's a great point. And again, I want to remind all of our viewers, the things we're saying are just our opinions. They're total speculation. We don't have any inside scoop. I certainly don't. I don't know if you guys do, but it's just speculation, and that's all we can really do at this point. But I think that's a great point, CJ.
Yeah, and I mean,
the point I'm saying is, okay, what do you bring to the table when we put you on the field? What do you bring to the table that so-and-so doesn't, or so-and-so doesn't, or so-and-so doesn't, and it's just part of that culture that this staff has created, that this is not a team of entitlement. It's a team of merit. You have to earn whatever it is that your time on the field. What do you bring to the table? When we put you on the field, what advantage is it to our football team when you're on the field? Okay. Let's turn on the tape and see.
Yeah.
And to that point, it did seem, and I brought this up with you guys, it did seem like to me, because remember Sark said some guys, the ball is going to naturally find in the offense. It just naturally finds these guys. Those guys seem to be Golden and Bond. Ball naturally found them within the offense. Even remember early on, Jontay Moore even couldn't get targets early on, right? The ball didn't naturally find him. And then I think you saw Sark after, and he even admitted this. He said, after we determine who's going to be organically the kind of the catalyst in the passing game, then I'll scheme some stuff for some guys. And he started scheming things for Jontay Moore. And he started scheming things. I think Ryan Wingo just kind of naturally just a freak. So he started playing him. He's a prodigy. You got to play prodigies. Then he started scheming things for Silas Bolden.
Yeah.
And I think we all saw that. We're like, hey, he put Silas Bolden in for a specific purpose. On this play, he wanted to scheme him open or an ending around, whatever it was. And we never saw any schemed opportunities for Jontay. To your point. Now, maybe it's because of what you said, CJ. Maybe like, so what's your elite X-Man ability? You show me what that is, and then I will scheme some stuff to maximize that ability. Or it's just that he fell out of favor. But Silas Bolden, it was clear they were intentionally, deliberately, it was a premeditated effort. Let's get him the football. Let's get him out there in these situations. And we never saw that with Jontay Cook. Now, I said, I don't know what reason, but I remember that. It was clear. That's also something that probably weighed on Jontay's mind. It's like, okay, so Silas Bowden's passed me up now too. Ryan Wingo's passed me up now too. And it's like, well, there's no path for me to play, guys. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to play.
I worked with Sark the first semester he was here. And the one thing that I found about him that I appreciated is he had a plan to implement his culture. And part of his culture is, from his mouth, we're not going to reward powders. We are not going to reward powders. You know, there's no room for that. And I have no idea if Jontay was going around, you know, feeling sorry for himself, pouting. I don't have any idea. But any great coach worth their salt will never reward pouting. You do. If you reward pouting, then you are setting up a culture to fail.
And one last thing I wanted to say here is, Rod, you talk about design snaps, designed routes, designed plays to go to a specific target. Those only happen because the quarterback has trust in that wide receiver, right? And I think that's a big part of it right now. You're seeing it with DeAndre Moore, 3rd and 8. Arch Manning's in the game. They call it basically a 4 verticals concept. He just hucks it up to DeAndre Moore to make a touchdown, 56 yards or whatever against Mississippi State. We saw Quinn Ewers in motion mid-play, change up a play, change up the route, win the one-on-one, and you got a touchdown to DeAndre Moore again. You got the hands of Matthew Golden. You know that speed and ability of Isaiah Bond is going to be there. And again, this was the guy that had the most in-game reps coming into this year of the Texas wide receiving room. If that couldn't have been used as an advantage, I don't know if it says anything other than the quarterbacks not having trust there, or the coaching staff not having trust that he's going to be in the right place at the right time on the right play. Otherwise, you would have seen, design plays. And we did see 1 or 2, right? His first touchdown against UTSA, I believe, that was 3rd and 17. 3rd and goal from the 17, right? What did they do? They had a design play to Jontay Cook, and he delivered. That was the touchdown where he ran a slant man coverage. He won the route. 2 guys cleared out. He catches the ball, goes underneath, scores a touchdown. That's great. But what can you do when you don't have it drawn up for you? Can you create after that? I think that was the biggest hindrance there.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I'm sure we'll learn some more details about it as the season plays out. But we do wish Jontay the best of luck. I mean, he's got tremendous talent, and hoping everything works out for him. Let's thank one of our sponsors before we continue here, our friends over at Duck Camp. I'm representing Duck Camp right now. Duck Camp produces premium outdoor goods for the outdoor spirit in all of us. Duck Camp is dedicated to providing the best outdoor goods so you can outdoor good, whether you're an avid hunter or you prefer fishing, or if you're like me and you prefer the camaraderie of the campsite. Duck Camp is the brand for you. Duck Camp is a brand that understands the culture of outdoor living and the good times and good friends that come along with living an outdoor lifestyle. Check out their new fall selection. I already got my new fall selection items in. They came in last week, so I'll be sporting those. You'll see me on the shows wearing my Duck Camp gear, so go check it out for yourself. That's duckcamp.com. They have a great new fall selection. You'll love some of the items. duckcamp.com, and we appreciate them sponsoring the winning drive. All right, we'll get back to that Jontay conversation, but we got a super chat here. This comes from It's 420 somewhere. You're damn right it is. Appreciate you for 420. It says, sounds like SEC to stick to 85 scholarships next year. Feel like this puts SEC teams at a disadvantage not having 20 extra scholarship players. Okay, so we don't actually know, but I know there have been rumors about whether they're going to be 85 or whether they're going to be 105 potentially roster limit. CJ, what are your thoughts? Seems like Sark is sticking to the conservative, safe side of this debate, and he right now is building his roster based on the 85 number rather than taking a risk that they could change it or they could increase it to 105.
Yeah,
right?
It was announced about 15 minutes ago that actually the SEC will be set
it is done.
85 for 2025. So that could still change. Further on, other schools, other conferences still have the ability to rise up to 105. But personally, I like it at 85, right? I think For Power 4, you'll see some conferences adopt 105 scholarships, but I think that diminishes the talent and the level of play in some of the GF5, FCS level schools. That sucks. That hurts the product of college football, in my opinion. So I like that. And I like that the idea Sarkisian has kind of adopted with his approach to recruiting and finalizing this cycle is, hey, we're going to go at it with 85 spots to fill 85 scholarships, and that's going to be it until we're told completely otherwise. Because one, if you go at it with 20 additional scholarship spots, you then leave them in a tough spot if you don't actually see the rules change, and hence the rule changes did not occur. So you would have been sitting there with about 20 kids, whether it be portal, whether it be high school kids, saying, hey, we no longer have a spot for you. Texas sitting with 22 commits in the class right now after Zayla 6 reclassified to come join the Texas football program a year early. That's an important spot to be at. Now, if that scholarship number does bump up to 105, you would see classes rise from about 23 to 26 to about 26 to 29 or 30. Right now, I think that Texas is pretty set at 85, and I don't think it'll hurt SEC teams too much, right? These teams are used to having big, bad dudes play 15 games a year, right, at the top level. Mm-hmm. That hasn't changed a whole lot, but what will change and what has changed is the need to get freshmen on the field early. So for Texas, when you're supposed to win a game by 30, you need to win that game by 30. That way you can get a Jontay Barron, you can get a Kelvin Banks, you can get a Gunnar Helm and a Quinn Ewers off the field to get those younger cats some game reps and also preserve their health for the long run, because it's a lot of football that needs to be played.
I see this opportunity if we could add some scholarships. I've said this over and over again. What I feel so strongly about it, it's a chance to go get some kickers, punters, deep snappers, fullbacks, some things that you'd like to have on your roster, but you can't give up one of your 85 for.
Yep.
For a guy that may wind up being a great collegiate punter, may not. He may wind up being a great collegiate deep snapper. He may not. So I see it as giving us an opportunity to fill our roster with very specific needs, like we were talking about a couple of days ago with a Peyton Hillis or a big fullback type guy that is not going to play every snap, but he's going to play some. And again, get some depth in that kicker room, punter, special teams room, maybe even a return guy. But as I see it as a chance to really bolster your special teams, even to the point of possibly getting guys that are just a Bill Bates type guy. Who may not have the speed, may not have the ability, to go out and help you at a safety or a nickel or whatever, but they can dang sure cover punts and kickoffs full speed every time, go down like a kamikaze, like a Bill Bates. That's where I see us taking advantage of that and filling in some missing links that, instead of asking a starter or a backup, to go out and do these things on the special teams. You got guys that's just their specialty. That's what they do. They cover kicks. They cover punts. They deep snap. They punt. They kick. They come in on short yardage as a fullback, whatever it is. That's what I was hoping that we could do with an increased scholarship number.
Coach, tell me you wouldn't have a spot on this team right now for a guy like Keelan Robinson. With an extra scholarship available, you keep that guy around regardless because of what he can bring to you in special forces and then in the return game. It doesn't matter if he ever sees the field offensively because he's going to be an impact guy elsewhere. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been kind of a devaluation.
Hey, by the way, our punting situation has not been the best so far, the 8 games that we played. We could have used another scholarship punter.
I agree with you on that, Coach. I agree with you on that, no doubt.
You're giving up 40 yards a game. That's a lot of yards to give up. That's 4 first downs. I don't remember, CJ, you said it or Rod said it. I think it was you. Was it you, CJ? You're basically giving up 4 first downs in a game, just on your punting team.
Yep. Field position's important.
Yeah.
You're right. That's one thing also we need to see bounce back in this game versus Florida coming up is some special teams, some consistency in that phase. Thank you, It's 420 somewhere. Thank you for the update there. And thank you, Matthew, for pulling up that Ross Dellinger tweet. Clay K says, Rod B, saw you at Matt's El Rancho Friday night. Smart bye-week stop. You damn right. It was good. And thank you, Matt. Thank you, Clay. We appreciate that. Do you guys think Florida's lack of run defense will prevent us from opening it up, or will Sark still open it up for mojo purposes? What do you call it, Coach? ATMO?
Yeah, but I don't know. They're giving up more. And Rod, I think you're the one that came up with this. They're giving up way more explosive, 35 or so explosive pass plays as opposed to 10 or 11 explosive plays running the ball. They've been giving up the big play in the passing game more so than the running game.
Yep, they're 100. If you look at 20-plus yard passes allowed, they're 111th. They've allowed 33 of them. So they have allowed. And CJ, we were talking about this when we had, and thank you very much, Clay, for the super chat, man. Really appreciate that. And I hope to see you again at Matt's El Rancho. If I see you again, I'll buy you a marg, man. Marg on
me. Some scary margaritas right there.
About to say, marg's on me if I see you again, Clay, no doubt. Thank you for the super chat. But we were talking about this, CJ, with the injury report, and you brought it up too. They got some corners, or some DBs, I should say, on that injury report. I think like 5 of them. And 2 of those guys are like real significant losses for them potentially on that injury report. So the secondary could be vulnerable going into this game.
Yeah, certainly. You're looking at it in the sense that Jason Marshall's out. They have another cornerback with about 450 snaps. I believe his last name is Brown. He's not playing in this game either. They have 2 guys from that secondary officially out. Asa Turner being one of them. He was a highly rated recruit coming out of high school. They're relying on a lot of backups in the secondary at this moment. 4 guys are officially out for this game. Another one who started last week is questionable. They're going to have to rely on Cormani McClain. That should be a familiar name to a lot of Texas fans because he was a 5-star, number 1 cornerback in the country. He actually committed to Colorado, signed there, was going to go be a cornerback opposite of Travis Hunter at Colorado. So Dion was looking at it in the sense of, I'm going to have Travis Hunter on one side and the number 1 cornerback in one class on the opposite side. Things didn't work out in Colorado. He hit the portal. Actually, I believe walked on at Florida at the beginning of the year, maybe one of those NIL walk-ons, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And then has since earned a spot on this roster, and also as a result has become a pretty big contributor due to all of these injuries. This should be pretty familiar for Texas, right? Texas got to face Denver Harris earlier this year at UTSA. They didn't test them a whole lot, but they did have success in the passing game. I would expect that to be the case again this weekend against Florida. One final point for anyone who's watched OTF this week. I've mentioned it a couple times, and I'll say it here again. Texas will have 2 chances to return to the level of offensive output that we hope to see this offense have, right? And that's vertical passing, that's after the catch, that's with the running game. They have 2 chances. Otherwise, who they are will just be a matter of the fact of who they are, right? Mm-hmm. Florida, I mentioned it, 4 starters in the secondary out, 5th one questionable. And then next week against Arkansas just Ole Miss just threw for 515 and 6 touchdowns. If you can't find some consistency down the field or in the intermediate route, and we see a lot more of just the screens, the dump offs, the check downs, that's just who this offense is going to become. Now, can you win a championship with that? It's going to be tough, right? Good thing you got a good defense. But these are 2 big opportunities, and it starts Saturday at 11 a.m. to see what kind of level of offense this Quinn Ewers, fully healthy Quinn Ewers, can lead this Texas offense back to.
Yep, I totally agree. It's a bounce back mojo game. If they can't find the mojo in this game and they're giving up, they give up 3 to 4 sacks and they can't impose their will in the running game or get a push, they don't have the verticality and explosivity with the offense. Yeah, I mean, it could just be that in SEC play, this is who they are offensively. And by the way, isn't bad. They're still a good offense and good enough to win games, especially compared with arguably the best defense in the country, but they're not going to be the juggernaut offensively that we predicted them to be. I think they still have it in them. I think they still have it in them to get that mojo So I'm expecting a bounce back. I think a lot of it's going to be on this offensive line. I'm expecting them to have a big bounce back performance. Now, to Clay's point, though, if you look at it statistically, yeah, Florida's rush defense, I believe, is the weakest part of their defense. I think they're 88, something like that in rush defense. They're like 68th in pass defense. But I'm with CJ. I think that there's ways for you to exploit that pass defense for Florida in this matchup. And if you can't, then maybe, Texas doesn't have – they're limited in that capacity, and they don't really have that ability. Adding Isaiah Bonds in the mix also is going to help that mojo we've been talking about.
But Rod, don't you think that to do that we have to be able to run the football? If we're going to exploit the Gators secondary, we're going to have to be able to run the ball, or they will not respect the run.
Do we think are we more than an average running team? I mean, are we? I think we're just an average.
Sometimes we are.
I think
we're not.
Texas is an average running team, aside from maybe a Trey Wisner scamper that leaks for about 40. And that's great when it happens, but the consistency in which you'd like to see it has been completely absent this year. I think it's two things, right? The offensive line is good. They're not great. And I think their more strength is in the pass protection game than creating running lanes. I also think right now you're seeing the running back splits in terms of carries and volume share. It's almost like they're two completely different running backs. So when you find strengths and you find, consistencies in one part of the game, how do you then use the other side to break tendencies without having true success?
Yeah. That's,
to me, because when Jaden Blue's in the game, what's going to happen? He's going to be outside the backfield. He's going to be an outside zone guy. When Trey Wisner's in the game, where's he going? There's not a balance there. And I think that's where you start to see some tendencies kind of showcase a little bit. And again, the running game just hasn't been great with both guys so far this year.
Yep. No, I agree. We're still waiting on that breakout performance. The Oklahoma game was the most impressive game, in my opinion, for the running game because you leaned on it. And it was able to win you a game, and you broke those 2 runs against a good defense. But since then, I'll admit, can they lean on that run game again to win them a game if they need to? We'll see. All right. Thank you for the super chat there, Clay. We appreciate that. Let's thank our friends over at Hardgrove Roofing because we really appreciate them sponsoring the winning drive. Folks, if you didn't know, Hardgrove Roofing has offices all over Louisiana, Arkansas, and of course, the great state of Texas, including Austin, Texas. Hardgrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs, plus they're Longhorn friendly, folks, with partners like lifetime Longhorn Bert Auburn, also lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, who joins the winning drive on Mondays, courtesy of Hardgrove Roofing. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there, and you can call them today for a free roof inspection. You won't get a better price than that. Free $99. That's right. If you're concerned about your roof, or maybe you don't know what's going on with your roof, our friends at Hardgrove Roofing, they do. So give them a call today, 512-645-3202. That's 512-645-3202, or visit hardgroveroofing.com. That's hardgroveroofing.com. Know who's on your roof with Hardgrove Roofing. Thank you very much to Hardgrove Roofing for sponsoring the winning drive. We appreciate them. All right, getting back to I'll get 420 somewhere question here for CJ because he threw it out there earlier, and it was pertaining to the subject matter of Jontay Cook. And he says, CJ, any word on how the locker room has taken this? That is a good question.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah. Listen, this is why it's very important to have guys, veteran status, guys that lead this locker room. The goal remains, right? And it's one thing for it to trickle down and have some sort of rippling effect. I don't think that was the case now. I think the writing has kind of been on the wall for a few weeks. As I mentioned, only 11 snaps in SEC play. I don't think right now that anyone was real off guard. I don't think a revolution is going to start arising in this Texas locker room. And listening to some of these guys Monday speak about what's at hand the rest of the season, I don't think this is really anything that's going to deter or sway the mindset of this team holistically from what the actual goal is. So listen, it's a really fair question. I don't think it'll have much effect at all in terms of the on-field play Saturday.
Yeah, I was talking to Jeremy Hills and Fozzie Whitaker about this. Derek Johnson, shout out to the Third and Longhorns podcast, and they didn't. We were talking about the leadership they have in different rooms, and they have really great leadership, right? Even that wide receiver room is developing a really nice culture of leadership. DeAndre Moore talks about how he learned a lot of how to be a professional and a great teammate from a Jordan Whittington. And he's a leader in that room. And it, seems like on the offensive line, you got leadership there. Quarterback, of course, some natural leadership there. So I think at wide receiver, the leadership in that room, I think is going to help them avoid any toxicity from this situation. And I'm sure these guys, that's their teammates. So as a teammate, you wish them the best, but you still, as a teammate, all right, you still have your goals with your team. But he's a former teammate, so I'm sure the guys are wishing him the best. And they all know what happened. I mean, it's all about guys want to play. Guys, at the end of the day, what this is all about is he wanted to play and he wasn't playing. Now, I don't know the details about, why he wasn't playing and what happened and the attitude and all that kind of stuff. That's all details I'm sure that we'll hear more about later. But the fact of the matter is, guys want to play. Do you hear what the coach from Syracuse said? He recently, and he's like from Georgia, I think. Initially, he's from Georgia, that guy. And he said, listen, every great player that you recruit wants to play. And if he ain't playing, he's going to transfer. And I'm happy about it because I'm recruiting those guys. I want your players. I want your great players that you won't play. And I think there is just some reality to that. If you got a great player and they're not playing at all, they're probably these days thinking about leaving and pursuing more playing time, greener pastures. So not saying it was that simple with Jontay Cook, but if you ain't playing, I think guys are looking at better opportunities, more opportunities.
Hey, Rod, you, out of the three of us, you're the only one that's been a player in that locker room. Every single player that Texas signs has dreams and visions and hopes and plans to be an NFL player.
Yep.
And make a difference in helping their family, whether it's their mother, whether it's their children, their wife, whatever it is. Amen. Every single person that we've ever signed while I was at Texas, they have aspirations and dreams of being in the NFL.
Yep.
And so I think we need to look at it from that point of view. And Jontay, seeing that he's not going to be able to have those reps to impress those scouts, he's got to go somewhere where he can get those reps to impress those scouts to somehow help his family. And you can't blame a guy for that. I mean, seriously, you cannot blame. We can say, oh, yeah, but you're at Texas. You got to wait. You got to be patient. I mean, that's not the world we live in. There's very few players outside the Manning family that have that type of attitude and understand, because to the Mannings, Arch doesn't need the money.
Nope.
I don't have any idea where Jontay Cook comes from, his family. But if he's like every player I ever recruited at the University of Texas, he wants to make a difference in his family by being able to help them financially through his talents. And if he didn't think he was going to be able to do that at Texas, then he's going to go do it somewhere else. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Great stuff, Coach. They all want to hit the league. You're right. And that's the same guys that were being recruited when you were there, when I was there, and guys that's being recruited today. They all have that same goal. They all want to go to the league.
They want to make a difference in their family's future.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame them for that. And if it didn't work out for him, I'm his biggest fan. Let's go do it, Jontay. Let's go somewhere and make it happen, man. Learn whatever you can from your experience at University of Texas and go make it happen and do something for your family.
Yep.
I agree.
Good message there. Good message. 214 Texas Bronco, we appreciate you. Says, is Sark convinced that we will have a fumbling issues running between the tackles because we don't have the attitude of running like last year? Thank you for the super chat there, 214 Texas Bronco. It is definitely a different type of running game than it was with a Jay Brooks, with a Bijan, with a Rojo. Coach, what are your thoughts about the style of running game that Texas does have? It's definitely not what it has been in previous years. And, I mean, you're not going to have that 1,000-yard rusher that Sark has had on the last 10 years as a head coach and play caller. What are your thoughts?
No, we're probably not going to. But as a coach, you have to, at some point, coach that kid up as, for example, the running back coach. Give him all the tools that you think he needs in terms of coaching for ball security then you can't, as a head coach, think, oh crap, we've got fumbling issues running between the tackles. We can't run between the tackles. I don't buy that. I don't. I think you've got to coach them up, do the best you can, and you recruited those guys for a reason because you thought they could help you win a national championship. If they fumble once or twice, hopefully they'll learn a lesson from that. And you got to put a little bit of heat on the coaches, not heat, but credit to the coaches for coaching these guys to have better ball security. That's one thing Tom Herman was really, really, if there's one thing he emphasized in practice, it was ball security. Over and over and over. You go back and look at the Tom Herman coach teams, and those guys are carrying the ball high and tight.
Yeah.
They're running in open field like this. They're not running with it out here. They're running with it right here, because that was emphasized. And I don't think Sark is convinced that we have a fumbling issue between the tackles. I really don't. I think you coach them up, and you got to trust those guys to make plays. You can't just let one or two fumbles keep you from having a running game between the tackles.
Yeah. Now, Coach, how do you juggle that when fumbling has also been combined with some drops in open fields, right? That's I see the point, made by 214 Texas Bronco is, is there a lack of trust at all with the running backs in the sense that
there is? Yeah, there is. But it's up to you as a coaching staff to remedy that. You coach that kid up. You can't just say, well, this kid, he's careless with the football. No, he's careless with the football because he needs to be coached up and it needs to be branded in his brain how to take care of the football. There's some fumbles that are just going to happen. There's some fumbles that the defense just comes in the right place, right time, strips the ball, knocks the ball out, whatever. But if you consistently see a running back losing the ball because of the same thing, it's on the coaches.
Yeah.
It's on the coaches to remedy that. You recruited that guy for a reason, okay? Don't toss him off to the side just because he makes a mistake. Coach his butt up. Coach him up, okay, and trust him. That's the best thing you can do for that kid is to show him through your coaching, through the hard work in practice, through all the strip drills and all the stuff they do. And I promise you, the running backs work on strip drills every day. Somebody's trying to strip the ball out of those running backs and those receivers' hands every day in practice. You keep working on that, and then at some point, you either got to trust the kid or you got to let him go.
Yep, it's good stuff.
Yeah, don't play him. Don't run from coaching. I think it's the old saying, right? Don't run from. That's coaching. Yeah. I agree. That's good stuff, Coach, for real. Thank you for the super chat, 214 Texas Bronco. Speaking of coaching, let's hit this story real quick about Billy Napier. Good news for Billy Napier. I'm not sure what changed in the last week or so, because I remember last week people were talking about Billy Napier's job being in jeopardy and him potentially being on the hot seat. Well, it seems like it's been reported. I saw it from Pete Thamel, and there's some other sources that it looks as if they are going to he's going to stick around, that Billy Napier is safe. It's being reported by multiple sources now. And there's an actual statement. Thank you very much there, Matthew, from Scott Strickland, the athletics director, who said, I want to let you know Billy Napier will continue as head coach of the Florida Gators. So he wanted to put any speculation to rest about him being on the hot seat coaching for his job. He's not coaching for his job, or at least for now.
There's a good chance, Rod, he's going to drop the next 3 games. And let's see what that AD says after that.
Yep. That's where I'm
because they've got Texas this week. Okay, they've got LSU the week after that. They got Ole Miss the week after that.
Yeah.
And they end the season with Florida State. If he loses 3 in a row, especially if he's blown out in a couple of those 3 games.
He better not lose to Florida State. If he loses to Florida State, he will be fired on the spot. I can say that.
I see this more as a coach. We're going to give you a chance, but you're going to have to win. We're going to send out a message to your recruits that you're going to be okay, but you better dang sure
deliver.
deliver these next 3 games, 2 of the next 3 games or whatever. I don't know what it is, but I really think there's a good chance they lose 3 in a row. I mean, maybe not, but
Yeah.
I hate for anybody to lose their job. I coached for a career. I know what it's like. I hate it, but it's the business. You're paid an incredible amount of money to produce a product on the field, and that is simply winning.
Yeah.
And if you're not winning, if he drops 3 more games in a row, and who knows what's going to happen in the Florida State game? It's kind of like our Thanksgiving game with who knows what's going to happen in that game? What can happen in that game? Florida may see it as a chance. Florida State may see it as a chance to win the state back, even though they haven't had the season they wanted. If they beat Florida, it rights some of that stuff.
That's normally who commented it earlier. Normally, when you see something like this, Todd Lacey said it, kiss of death. You never want to see a vote of confidence from an owner at the pro league or your athletic director at the college level, because, listen, they hear what's being said, and they got to come out and say something like this. They probably have thought it as well at some point, but I like your point, Coach. You got to finish strong if you're Florida. Right now, I know that Florida's banged up across the board, but if you're in that locker room, you got to be sitting around saying, hey, we got to play for Coach, man. We got to play for ourselves to get a win on the board, but we got to stay. This guy's put his neck on the line. They're giving us an opportunity to come play college football. Let's play for Coach here. I think it's an easy way to easy rally cry, and try to motivate your guys, because, again, you just played a tough physical game against Georgia. What do you have right now in your locker room to play for, to get behind, to rally for? Not a whole lot. Again, you're going through the toughest stretch of college football that maybe any team's ever seen, and there's nothing really for you to be excited about on a third-string quarterback. That's something. Play for your coach. Play for the guy that gave you the opportunity. With that said, I don't know if he's coming back for 25. Nowhere in that statement does it say 2025. So that might be one of those things where it's get through signing day, make sure that your guys are signed up, locked in, make sure that you're not losing immediately some of these talented kids to the portal. And then in January, you see that coaching carousel start moving along a little bit. And that new face, hopefully not Kurt Signetti, we'll be honest there, you might see something happen later on.
No, per Pete Thamel, he says, per ESPN sources, 70% of Florida's NIL money is in the freshmen and sophomores. So there's a belief that maybe this thing gets turned around. And, of course, DJ Lagway is a big part of that too. Sure, where his allegiances are, but there are reports that DJ Lagway is a big fan of Billy Napier. They said the buyout for Napier alone would have been more than $26 million.
That's a lot of money.
Which would have been the second biggest in college football history, behind Texas A&M last year on their Jimbo Fisher fiasco. They said the estimated entire transition of Napier's staff and buyout would be upwards of $40 million.
Okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if Ole Miss just destroys Florida? And we've all heard the same thing about Lane Kiffin. He would fall on a sword to get that Florida job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who else is out there right now that's setting the world on fire? Who is the hottest coach out there?
Kurt Signetti.
Yep.
I mean, okay, so do you just let this go, or you take a chance on getting an up and coming coach like that, or like Lane Kiffin? I mean, that's tough.
Man, I might go Signetti.
I would too.
Google him.
Have you seen the video on him talking about the type of players that he wants to recruit and the players that he looks for? He's very specific. Yeah. I mean, he's got a plan, and he sticks to that plan, and his roster shows that. Yep. Who wouldn't want a guy like that?
I like this one too.
Ooh.
Red Lashley. Yeah, that's another great one.
That's not bad. It's not bad. No, it's a good conversation. I'm sure some boosters and some Florida boosters and donors are having that conversation right now.
Trying to get up that buyout money.
Yeah, exactly. You're damn right. Yeah, Texas has been there before. We know how it works. Let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek before we move on here, gentlemen. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown, and they won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local Spec, so please give it a try. It's also available at Central Market. I know that because we do some shopping there, and I saw their display, and my wife got really excited because her new favorite wine is Flat Creek Estate Winery, and that's Super Texan as well. But of course, Flat Creek is not just for the great wines, but it's also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. Perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with that very special person in your life. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com. Thank you very much, Flat Creek, for sponsoring the winning drive. I really appreciate all of your support. All right, let's get back to our questions here. We appreciate all you guys and your participation. How about this one from V Brown? Good question here, V Brown. Says, Rod B, has Terry Joseph done enough to earn an extension? In my opinion, next will determine if he's truly developing that position based on the fact it has, I don't know if V Brown had another continued post there. I'll say I think he has earned an extension. I'll say that. I think he has. Because, and I've been saying this for a while, the way it looked to me in terms of roster construction, it seemed like, just my opinion, that Sark was waiting till later talent acquisition cycles. When we first got here, I think he focused on offense. And I think he waited till later on in the roster construction process to start building the defense. I think they devoted a lot of resources, a lot of that. He's an offensive coach, so it makes sense. Get your quarterback, your big humans. All right, that was a big priority. Get your wide receivers. That was a top priority. They built that offense first. And then I think they started constructing the defense. And look at that last DB class you had, right? You had 5 DBs in that one class. So I think Sark was waiting to start building the defense till he got the offense where he wanted it, because he's an offensive guy and he's calling the plays. And no, offensive guy calling the plays, offense will get you fired before defense would. If he waits to start constructing the offense, he'd already been on the hot seat at Texas. I think he knew that. He's like, let me get this offense right. you guys don't let me slide on the defense. This offense ain't clicking. Longhorn fans would have been really upset really fast, right? So he did his, I'm sure John Bianca let him know, you want to fix the offense first. So he worked on the offense, got the offense situated, and I think he waited to start building the defense. And honestly, they had a lot of faith in what they inherited on the defensive side of the ball they could develop. They really banked on their development on the defensive side of the ball. That's why early on, it was built on a lot of things you inherited, like Sweat and Murphy and Jalen Ford and all those pieces that you inherited. And now look at the young pieces now. These are guys they brought in, not the young pieces. Janae Barron's not one of those guys. They, Tap Daddy, some veteran pieces, but the guys they just brought in, Muhammad is a big part of it. Anthony Hill's a big part of it. The edges, how they started building the edges with the vision of, length and speed and explosion on the outside. So I just think that's ultimately also what held up, Coach Terry Joseph and his, development of the secondary overall. Still no excuse for last season. I mean, they were one of the worst secondaries in pass defense in the country. But I think that also led to a kind of a slow, methodical build in the secondary, in the back seven. I think now they're at that point. They brought in a lot of pieces they like. They've had a chance to develop these guys in that system, same terminology, same system, same technique, fundamentals. And remember, I said in offseason, I say, well, if the light doesn't go off this season for the secondary, because it was the only position, I remember I kept saying this, the only position really under Sark that hasn't taken a huge leap of improvement was the secondary. And I said, if they don't do it this year, yeah, you might need to make some coaching changes, because 3-4 years is long enough in the same system with the same coaches to start seeing some return on that investment. And well, we've seen more than return on investment. They're the best damn secondary in the country, arguably. So yeah, pay that man his money. He's him and Blake Gideon, they both earned it. That secondary right now is playing at an elite level, no doubt about it.
Good point. I agree right there with you, Rod. I think that it's been just enough to say, hey, you've got your pieces right now. The task and challenge is to maintain that level of play, because you've shown that you can, play to that level. Do you have the pieces in the cupboard right now? Do you have the developmental tools to get a guy like Kobe Black up to the level of a Jahdae Barron or a Manny Muhammad? Because he's shown it already that he's going to be a player for Texas. Now it's about extracting the most out of those guys.
I agree. Yeah, we were hard on Terry Joseph. I was hard on those guys, so I'll give them props. There's no doubt they definitely deserve, if not an extension, then give them a hell of a bonus. All right, let's get back to the questions here. Ashley, you got a couple of them, so I'm gonna try to hit all of Ashley's questions real quick. She said, Rod, if you could go back to your college days, what would you do different? Oh, that is a great question. Are we talking about on the field or off the field? That is a great question. I'm gonna go off the field. I should have been networking from the time I was at Texas originally. And I should have, I didn't do enough networking when I was there originally. I'm talking about with my fellow students, right? Going to class and students and the study sessions and that stuff. I should have been networking, because what you realize is when I got to the point where I went back to school at damn near 30, when I was done playing the NFL, all those people were like bosses. They'd all risen up through the corporate ladder already. They were already bosses. If I had already had connections with those people, it'd have made my life a whole lot easier going into the real world as a corporate guy, because I'd have had connections. So I always tell young guys, I say, man, these young folks out here who are you going to class with your classmates, they want to get to know you. They want to help you out whenever they get out there in the real world. You should let them. So don't don't disregard those connections, network, and try to cultivate them, because you never know where they'll lead. Because the world, as we all know, maybe you found it out too late, it ain't about what you know at all. It's all about who you know.
Let me tell you, there is a director of player development at the University of Texas, a good friend of mine. I worked with him several years, Kevin Washington. I don't know if you know Kevin. Kevin was out of Houston, played at Notre Dame, transferred to Abilene Christian, my alma mater, finished out his career at Abilene Christian, then went to work for FCA in Abilene for Abilene Christian, Hardin Simmons, and McMurray. And then Tom Herman hired him at Houston, or they hired him at Houston to take care of the FCA. Tom saw the value that he brought to the program and just took him in football only as player development, kind of like a big brother on the team. Yeah. He's a guy, the whole time I was at Texas, his room was always full of players, because he's a guy that they can go to and say, hey, my position coach called me a wussy today or whatever, and that really pisses me off. And so Kevin says, okay, all right, so how are we going to respond to that? How are we going to respond to that? And so Kevin helps those players through that stuff.
I like that.
And so I said all that to say that he has put together a program at Texas. I can't remember what it's called, but they bring in Texas X's from all businesses, every kind of business you can imagine. And they put together a forum and a time for our players to put on their suits and ties and go meet with whatever University of Texas football alumni is involved in, whatever just alumni period is involved in, and help them make connections in the business world for life after football. And I think that's I know a guy I met, this is not really an indictment on Texas, it's more of kudos for A&M, but I met an older guy in the ranch business who was a University of Texas alumni, who told his grandson, I'll pay for you to go anywhere in the country you want to go. I'll pay for you to go to college if you go to A&M, because if you have that ring, you will always have a job. And that's true about A&M. They are so loyal to each other. So that's one of the things Kevin Washington and the staff has tried to do, is develop that at the University of Texas. Okay, in terms of connecting with alumni for life after football. But to go back to Ashley's question, if Rod could go back to his college days and it was today, I know what he'd do different. He'd be cashing those NIL checks. That's what he would be doing different.
Now that is
Who
true.
wouldn't want Rod Babers representing their business, man? Come on. You're the man.
That is true, Coach. I would be giving some of them NIL check. That is true. Good point. You right about that. You know what I would do differently? Back then, I would have caught some of them damn interceptions I dropped. and I'd have got drafted higher, and I wouldn't need the NIL check.
Nobody's catching the ball on my side of the field, not even me.
Not even me. And unfortunately, I was right. Yeah. Thank you, Ashley, for the question. Also, Ashley asked, would you guys be more surprised by Texas winning the SEC or making it to the playoffs 11-1? CJ, I'll throw it to you. I think maybe making it to the playoffs 11-1. I guess I had them 11-1 to start the season, so they can't be surprising to me. I did have them 11-1 to start.
Winning the SEC is where I'm going to go with this one. Listen, right now with the way that Texas offensively is playing, it's not up to a standard that's going to win the SEC. Now, you can get to that level by coming out against Florida and Arkansas and trying to gain back that confidence and mojo, as Sark mentioned Monday. I think the defense is very good. I think the defense is in the conversation for being the best in the SEC. I think it's best in the conference, best in the country kind of conversation right now. That can carry you, but the offense at the moment cannot. Now, Texas can win the next 4 games with this offense playing this level. I don't think that they can win the SEC if they have to play Georgia again. If they have to go play, whoever else is in the conversation to make it to Atlanta with this level of offense, I would be more surprised with the SEC championship coming to Austin in year 1 than going to College Station really as the final big test in winning that game. That would be something I think right now. If they played today, if they played next week, if they played November 30th, I'm liking Texas in that game. But we'll see what levels each team is playing at when that game comes rolling around.
Good question, Ashley. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm with him. I'm going to go with winning the SEC because I predicted they'd be 11-1. I don't know if I predicted they'd win the SEC, though, because I think initially when the season started, predicted they'd lose to Georgia. And I guess that put Georgia in the driver's seat there. Thank you for the question, though. We appreciate it. Jack here. Jack says, these kids are starting to rack up that NIL money. How much could that affect players going to states with no income tax? That's interesting. I didn't think about that. I know in the NFL, it matters when guys have these multi-million-dollar deals. They start looking at the state tax and how that can affect things. I'm not sure about that. I know they better make sure they're on top of their taxes because they got to pay taxes. All right, different states, every state's got different tax laws. So I know they got based on the NIL money, and when they start revenue sharing too, I believe they're gonna be able to have to pay taxes based on where they play too. When they start like revenue sharing and all that kind of stuff, so it can get tricky. I would advise these guys to get an accountant, like straight up, just get an accountant, man. You don't want to get behind. You don't want Uncle Sam knocking on your door saying that you owe him money.
Right. Yeah, Rod. I want to say this. You know this. You've been in the NFL. Jordan experienced it. The way the NFL works is if you play a game in Texas, if you play for Kansas City Chiefs and you're playing in Texas, you don't have to pay state income tax on that money. But maybe in Missouri you do. Mm-hmm. So that's why you have to have a great accountant. Wherever you play, that's what you're getting paid as an employee in that state. And so when pro teams, they like to come play in Texas because they don't have to pay state income tax on the money they've earned. Whatever state they play a game in, they have to go by that state's laws in terms of taxes. And so it's a big deal. That's why everybody in the NFL has to have a good accountant to keep up with all that stuff. But I don't think a 17-year-old kid is worried too much about whether a state has a state income tax or not. Yeah,
I don't think it'll affect them. I don't think that will affect their decision about what school they're going to go to. It shouldn't. But there's no doubt, Coach. I learned that the hard way too, Coach. That you got to pay tax at every stage of playing. Learn it the hard way. Unfortunately, I did get that knock from the IRS. Unfortunately, you don't want that knock. That is not. That's not good news. All right. Thank you for the question, there, Jack. How about this one? This comes from Michael Simpson. Thank you for the question. Buy or sell? Love buy or sell question. Thanks, Mike. Buy or sell? Tight end is the most underrated portal need after this season. Got to replace Helm and Davis, and I'm not sure anyone on the roster is ready for that. That is a good question. Can I give y'all a trivia question about Gunnar Helm that you probably didn't know?
Let's do it.
He has more 20-plus yard receptions than any player on the team.
Whoa.
Ain't that crazy?
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Nobody would have guessed that. Nobody. That's a trivia question that nobody would ever get.
So he also has been named as a semifinalist. Is that right?
Yeah, for the
what is the tight end award?
The Mackey. It's the Mackey Award. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I believe that's now 5 Longhorns listed to the semifinalists of their position awards. Of course, you know, Jade Barron, the Thorpe, Anthony Hill was named to the Butkus Award. I don't know if it necessarily counts, but we're going to give it credit anyways. Michael Taft listed as
you damn right.
Yeah. We're gonna tip the cap there, of course. And I believe Jake Majors was listed to the Remington. So there's 5 right there, and who knows what helps afterward. But that's good stuff. That's individual play showing up.
So do we think, to Michael's question on buy or sell, tight end is the most underrated portal need after this season? Buy or sell?
It's all dependent upon the growth of Jordan Washington in my eyes. I think the way that his body has progressed and developed already, that is going to be really interesting to see what Texas does in the portal. I think if Texas adds someone in the portal at tight end, it'll be after the spring. I think right now, because listen, Juan Davis departs, but you're probably going to get Amari Niblack back. What has he done? Unless he's going off to see another portal adventure, right? You know, I think that's something that's worth asking. I would think right now that he's coming back. Jordan Washington's more of that inline guy. You'll have Nick Townsend coming in. You'll have Amari Winston coming in. Maybe you find something with Michael Terry next year as well if he were to commit to the Longhorns. You got options. You got bodies. The issue is you're young there. Now, Texas wanted to add pieces a year ago, right, with Amari Niblack, but he hasn't necessarily been a big piece of that. They were in it for Ben Urisic, who is now tight end too, plays a lot at Georgia. We'll see. Spencer Shannon's still on the roster. He's still a big piece, big body at least. I just don't know what his ceiling is. We've not seen him at all, you know, and right now I think you have to kind of at least wonder, maybe worry a little about what his actual impact will be at Texas long term. So
yeah,
I say you go out and get a guy with 1 year left, a proven guy at maybe a smaller school or a school that's not getting the attention to be able to come in and bring a kid into the national spotlight. I just don't know that we have anybody that can replace the production of Gunnar Helm and what he brings to this program.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. He's been fantastic so far this year, no doubt about that. Getting back to the question, thank you, Michael, for the question there. Brendan says, do you think the market is going to change drastically for edge rushers due to Dylan Stewart at South Carolina? Reported his NIL package is north of $1.5 million. I will say this. Remember Ryan Day reportedly was talking to like a group of boosters and donors at Ohio State, and then he said he need like $13 million to keep the roster elite. And he
13
said,
what?
13. The number was 13 million to keep the Buckeyes roster intact.
It's going to be higher than that. You're probably looking at 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, he said, at least reportedly, he said that if you want elite tackles and elite edges, it costs you around $1 million.
Wow.
He said that. So I don't exact. This young man is elite. $1 million is wild. I saw that story there, Brendan. That would be, I think that would set the market. I'm assuming that sets the market. I can't imagine a defender period in college football getting that kind of money.
Now, Texas,
crazy world we live in.
Maybe Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter can get that kind of money, Coach. Travis Hunter can do it, but he's playing both ways.
That's right.
Now, Texas has had to make some of those tough decisions to say, hey, we want you out of the portal, but for the price that you're asking and for the price that other teams are willing to pay, we're going to go in different directions. Now, it's going to be interesting. If that market is set high at the freshman year at positions in which Texas has talented freshmen at, you're going to have to pony up. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting around kind of having the same discussion we're having right now with Jontay Cook with some guys that were really, key contributors this year as well. So you're going to have to play big boy ball to stay at this level. That's for sure.
Speaking of Jontay Cook, this Todd Lacey comment here, I believe, was in regards to that conversation. He says NFL scouts are looking for a great teammate besides just looking at sheer talent. How does he practice? Does he go to class? Is he selfish? These are just a few characteristics they look at. You are right about that, Todd. To that point, I believe Jordan Whittington was drafted mostly on a lot of that. Yes, he had the film, but when the Rams talked about how much they liked him, a lot of it was essentially recommendations and referrals from teammates and from people that the Rams talked to around the program about Jordan Whittington's football character. And so they looked past, or at least overlooked, a lot of his injury issues and decided, no, we will invest in the football character, and it paid off for him. So good point there, Todd. I think that is something the NFL scouts also.
And I can tell you they do that. When I was the head football coach at Brownwood, I had several NFL teams reach out to me when Kenny Vaccaro was coming out about his work ethic. What kind of teammate was he in high school? What all the work ethics, all that stuff. I mean, they leave no stone unturned, and that they'll go back even into high school and see what a kid's reputation was from the coaching staff. So they will check them out. There's no doubt.
Yeah, that's a great story there, Coach. Good stuff. All right, before we end the live stream, we got one more question that I want to get more with a comment than anything, then we'll end things. But let me tell you about South Point Dodge first. Texas football fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is the one-stop shop. You can score big today at South Point Dodge, including scoring big with one of their great deals. Right now, they have over 50 Ram 2500s, all marked down with huge savings over at South Point Dodge. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is the one-stop shop. Austin's automotive everything, southpointdodge.com. Go check out their inventory online. They're at their website, southpointdodge.com, where you can go check them out in person off of I-35 in South Austin at southpointdodge.com. Thank you very much for sponsoring the Winning Drive. All right, here's our last comment of the day. Miracle Martinez, and I think it's a damn good one. I love this one. On Texas football, Texas Exes take care of their own. That's been my experience. Became paralyzed with no hope to walk again. Texas Exes helped. I now walk with a cane. Lone Star Paralysis Foundation. God bless you.
That's great.
That is, man, hey, that is more in my heart right there.
Go get him, Miracle. Go get him, buddy.
Yeah,
you're right about that. You're right about that.
I love that. And also, they've taken care of me too, Miracle. That is a great story, and I think a great place to end the live stream. Thank you for sharing, Miracle Martinez. We appreciate you. And we appreciate all of you guys for joining the show, participating. Thanks to Matthew behind the scenes. He's really the real MVP. He makes this thing click. Thanks to our sponsor, southpointdodge.com. Thank you to flatcreekestate.com as well. Duckcamp.com. Really appreciate them as well. And I want to thank you guys for all of your participation and all the love. Coach, thanks you for all your wisdom and knowledge. Can't thank you enough. CJ, appreciate all your hard work too, brother. You are the man. Remember, tomorrow, you are Friday. So Friday, things shake up a little bit different. You'll still have coffee and football at 8 a.m. We'll have our live stream at 3. All right, it's a home game, so we'll be live from the UT Co-op. So come hang out with myself and Bobby Byrne. We'll be down there at 3 o'clock, and that's when your Friday live stream will be happening. So thank you very much, all you guys. Miracle Martinez, thanks for the testimony, man. That really was powerful, and we really appreciate that. Hardgrove Roofing, hardgroveroofing.com, southpointdodge.com, flatcreekestate.com, and duckcamp.com. Thank you guys for sponsoring us, and thank all you guys out there for watching and for listening, and for Coach, and for CJ, and for Matthew. And until next time, hook 'em horns.